the reason that having established conscious oneness with God, that all good comes into my life or unfolds in my life, the reason is this: my conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all of God's creation. Now you can begin to realize what freedom means. When I am consciously one with God, I am consciously one with all spiritual being, whether appearing as person, circumstance, condition. And so it is that in my consciousness of my oneness with God, I find myself one with everything necessary to my fulfillment. And then those are drawn to me who in any way can be a part of my fulfillment, as long as I can be a part of their fulfillment, because it never works for the benefit of one alone. In the same way, everything of which I have need appears as it is needed in the same way, whether it is a book or a publisher of a book, whether it is transportation or accommodation, whatever it is, there is no need to take thought. There isn't even a need to know that we're going to have need of it. Often, more often than I can tell you, persons and things appear in my life of which I have no knowledge of their function or that they ever will have a function, and then later find out the importance of them to me, to the infinite way, or of my importance or function to them. In other words, this is a spiritual experience in which the human does not have to take thought. The human does not have to influence anything or anybody. The individual has only to live constantly and consciously in his oneness with God. Now, having discovered that, and having found that my sole need is to live in that conscious oneness, naturally the hope, the joy, the pleasure comes in sharing that and imparting that understanding or wisdom or truth to those who may be interested in it. But you see, having found freedom through this, there is no wish or will to hold anyone under any obligation or bond or in any tie. Now, it is a wonderful thing to know that since I and my Father are one, and since the Father says, Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine, it is a wonderful thing to be able to abide in that truth, to have periods of meditation or contemplation, and inwardly to live in that promise or assurance, and then not look outside to get, to secure, to attain, or to achieve, but only look outside for the joy of sharing. So it is then that our students right from the start understand this point, that not now, not any time in the years since this message has been before the public, not in any conceivable future time, will there be anything for them to join, and now you know the reason. And I do want every student to understand the reason. There's nothing personal about it. It is only that I know the joy of living in this conscious relationship of oneness with God. And I know of the spiritual unfoldment that takes place, the joy, the freedom, the harmony, the infinite abundance of it. And I would like to see all men and all women and all children enjoy that. And I know this, that to hold anyone in any bondage of relationship whatsoever would be to deprive them of that much of their freedom. It is for this reason that in our classwork I have said to the students, if for any reason some misguided student of the infinite way, in my presence or in my absence, should ever attempt to organize it or ask you to join it, please say no. Please say no, no matter who they may be or why. For there is no need for you to be tied to anyone but God. There is no need for you to be under any relationship at all with anyone but God. Maintain your conscious spiritual relationship with God, and you will be a better husband or wife or brother or sister or child or parent or citizen of your community or state or nation than you ever would be by signing a written oath or taking an oral obligation. Why? Ah, yes, there is a mystery as well as a miracle. Once you have attained a conscious relationship with God, you cannot violate your integrity without it cutting your own throat. This is the mystery and the miracle. No one can violate their own integrity once they have attained a conscious relationship with God. No one can ever run out on an obligation, whether it is of a commercial nature, marital, parental, filial, or that of citizenship. Each one is under an inner impulsion to fulfill their own inner integrity. Their course of action may not always agree with the standards of the world. That isn't the important thing, that we live up to the standards of the world, as long as we are not violating our own inner integrity. And that inner integrity holds one rigidly. Therefore, it isn't necessary to be bound by an obligation. It isn't necessary to be bound by a written paper. Some of you have read that letter, Lesson to Sam, And now it's available in a little pamphlet. Some of you do not know that Sam is my stepson. I only use the word stepson so that you know that I'm not speaking of a blood son, because in all respects he is my son. But I must identify him as stepson to explain this to you, that when I came into his family and he came into mine, we had a talk. And it was brought about by something or other that was said between us, and he said, "My scout oath." And then I said, "Sam, let us never again have that scout oath. Between you and me, we don't need any oaths. I'll never break my word to you, and you might just as well make up your mind. There's no occasion for you to break your word to me, and therefore you never have to give an oath. Your word will always be good enough for me, and you'll make your word good and keep it good by never violating it. But if you violate it, giving a scout oath won't make it binding. And it won't make me believe you. The only thing that makes me believe you is you are living up to your word. And that's all that will ever give you confidence in me, if I do not violate my word to you. This is freedom. This is freedom, because we are not bound by any human obligation to each other. He is bound to himself, never to violate his truthfulness, and I am bound to myself, not to violate my truthfulness. And this must be our relationship with each other throughout the world. Not that we need oaths of allegiance, not that we need a written word, only that we attain this inner conscious union with God, and then find that we have no capacity to violate our integrity. That capacity has been taken from us. That is why, and I've said this before, the United Nations and all such activities serve their purpose for the time being, but they cannot be of permanent value, because all humans sooner or later break their words, break their bonds, break their obligations, when it sufficiently serves their purpose, individually or collectively. But the individual or the group of individuals who have made their contact with God can never violate their obligations, their duties, or their relationships. Therefore, the ideal society, whether a group as small as we are in this room, or whether a nation of people, an ideal society is one in which the members have attained in meditation that conscious contact with their source. I have never met a mystic who was dishonest. I have never met a mystic who had any joy or profit in lying or deceiving. And yet I have never met a mystic who lacked for anything. A mystic is one who has attained conscious union with God. Even a mystical experience, even if it hasn't made one a full and complete mystic, and one need never be concerned about being a full and complete mystic. The entire history of the United States reveals only 2 in 175 years. And so we need not be concerned with whether or not we attain full mysticism. Just the attaining of an occasional mystical experience, such as we attain in meditation, this is sufficient to keep us in our integrity with ourselves, with our families, with our business, with our communities, and ultimately around the world. The reason that this is one of the most important principles of the infinite way is this. Heretofore, in metaphysical practice or teaching, it has not been thought unseemly to attempt to demonstrate things, demonstrate employment, or demonstrate supply, or demonstrate a parking place, or demonstrate an automobile, or demonstrate a vacation or a holiday, or demonstrate health. But in the message of the infinite way, this is unseemly. More so because it's unnecessary. It is this, the revelation of this principle, that has set the pattern for us in demonstrating a life harmonious. Our demonstration is the demonstration of God's presence, the demonstration of conscious oneness with God, or the demonstration of God realization. This is our only demonstration. Let me illustrate that in just a single instance. Those of you who have been attending these lectures notice that they are spontaneous, unrehearsed, not subject to a quiz program at all. At times, students have asked me if, in my meditations before coming on the platform, if I meditate to receive a message, or to receive the message which is to be given. And the answer is no. Under no circumstances. The meditation is to attain the realization of God. If before I come on the platform, whether it's 5 minutes before or whether it is 6 hours before, that is of no importance, as long as I attain the realization of God's presence, when I come to the platform, God will speak. Now, what is to come forth, I haven't the faintest idea of, nor have I any interest in it. It isn't my function to have a message. If there is to be a message, it will have to be God's message. I feel exactly like Jesus. This doctrine is not mine, but his that sent me. Therefore, I need not have a message. I need only be an instrument through which the source of the message can speak. Therefore, when I am consciously aware of the presence of God, I can go on the platform. Now, if God speaks, well and good. If not, we could sit in the silence. You would receive your message just the same, because you haven't come here to hear a message from a man. You didn't come here to find out what a man knows about truth. If you understood this message at all, you knew that you were coming here to receive truth. Truth itself, not a message about truth. Truth itself, an impartation of truth. God really doesn't need my mouth, so that there could be times, and a couple of times there have been times, when there were no words, when we sat mostly in meditation. But I heard no one complain or ask for their money back. Well, they weren't charged any. That's all right, too. I forgot that. Now, it is the same in my work with businessmen, with salesmen, and having been a businessman, a great many businessmen and women come to me. I don't ask them to meditate for a sales argument or meditate for an idea for their business. Resist the temptation to meditate for anything. Meditate for the realization of God's presence. And then if you have to go out to buy or to sell or to write or to compose or to paint, you'll find that the necessary gift, talent, art is there. The idea, whatever it is that is necessary. Life, as it has unfolded itself to me, consists only of living in the conscious presence of God and letting God live its life in its own way, utter itself in its own language. And I've had strange experiences along that line. In the writings, you'll find strange things, things that could never have come out of my mind. This new book, which is in my hands less than a week, I'm on my 6th reading of it today. By tonight, I will have completed the 6th reading of it. And the reason is that I'm finding more new things in it than I ever dreamed that I knew. There are things in there that really startle me when I read them. But so it is when I hear some of these classes played back. And I wonder how they came through without my catching them. But it is so because the Master rightly knew that I can of my own self do nothing. It is the Father within me that doeth the works. I do nothing of myself. And the meditation then, in which God realization takes place, in which an awareness of a presence takes place, or an inner click, or release from human care or anxiety, that meditation results in the presence of God appearing as fulfillment. And that is why I love so much the Bible statement that in thy presence is fulfillment. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. Attain the Spirit of the Lord, and you will have attained freedom. What kind of freedom? Freedom from fear, freedom from doubt, freedom from lack, freedom from limitation, whether it's in the form of speech or music or art or business. Freedom means a freedom from all sense of restriction, limited action or wisdom or understanding. But it is only attained in one way: in thy presence, where thy Spirit is. Attain the Spirit of God, the consciousness of God's presence, and you will have attained freedom. To the students who attain some measure of this freedom, there comes calls, opportunities for helping others to their freedom. To these students, let me say, do not assume the responsibility for another's life, but insofar as God's grace permits, offer them their freedom. Offering them their freedom, does that not make them live on you or off of you? It turns them away from you. Do not bind anyone to you. The really great spiritual teachers of the Orient, and that is the only place where you have found the great spiritual teachers, these great teachers never bound a student to them, but always stood by with them. Whether it took 6 years or 7 or 9 or 12 made no difference. They gave themselves unstintingly to their students until they could bring the student to that place of freedom. And then the student is sent forth on their own to demonstrate their oneness with their source, by whatever name God may be known to them on this path or that path or the other. The secret of spiritual teaching, as we know it in the infinite way, also is for the teacher to stand by with the student, but leading the student always to that point of release where the student realizes complete union with God, and therefore no further dependencies even on the teacher, although always recognizing the relationship, the spiritual bond that must forever exist between the master and the disciple, the teacher and the student. That is why on this path there is a tremendous bond between all of us, but it is a bond that has no human obligation, only the spiritual obligation to love one another.